In Japan, many students don't rely on motivation to study. Instead, they have a hidden system that very few people in the West truly understand. And that's exactly what makes them so consistent. They don't wait until they feel like studying. They build systems. Because if you depend on motivation, there will be many days where you simply do nothing. Let me give you an example. Peelbert is a normal student. He goes to university and studies more than 12 hours a day. He ends up exhausted, stressed out, and somehow his grades still aren't even that good. Meanwhile, Peel-san is a Japanese student at the University of Tokyo. He only studies 1 hour on the day before the exam. During midterms and finals, he still has free time. He isn't constantly stressed, and overall, he's happy. And even though the internet keeps trying to sell you miracle study techniques, most truly great students do much simpler things. Small habits repeated every single day. And today, I want to show you 7 things many of the best students in Japan actually do and how you can apply them too. The first thing many Japanese students do is study every single day. And no, that doesn't mean studying 12 hours nonstop. That's one of the biggest myths about Japan. Consistent students don't win because they study insanely hard for one day. They win because they never completely stop. A lot of people only study when they feel pressure, before an exam, or when they feel guilty. But truly disciplined students turn studying into something automatic, like brushing your teeth. In Japan, there's a philosophy called kaizen, which basically means improving little by little without trying to change your entire life overnight. And honestly, that works much better for studying. For example, instead of saying, today I'm going to study for 6 hours, start with 20 minutes, but do it every day, because the goal isn't to look productive. The goal is to build consistency. And once the habit exists, studying stops feeling like a constant battle. The second thing is repetition. And honestly, this is probably one of the most important ones. Most people study like this. They read something once, understand it, and assume they've learned it. But the brain works the opposite way. Remembering something multiple times is what actually creates memory. That's why many Japanese students constantly review material. They don't study a topic once and move on forever. They come back to it again and again. And you can apply this very easily. Review something the next day, then 3 days later, then 1 week later. And instead of only reading, try recalling the information without looking. Explain it out loud. Do exercises. Write down what you remember. Because studying isn't about recognizing information. It's about being able to retrieve it, especially during exams. The third thing is probably the hardest one today. Eliminating distractions. Many Japanese students study in extremely simple spaces. Clean, quiet, minimal. And even though it sounds insignificant, your environment massively changes the way your brain functions. Every notification, every sound, every short-form video teaches your brain to lose focus. So try this. When you study, put your phone far away, literally far away, not face down, not next to you, far away. Use small blocks of concentration, 25 minutes, no interruptions. Then take a break. Your brain works much better that way. The fourth thing is that they practice constantly, especially in mathematics, science, and languages. Most people confuse reading with learning, but reading is passive. Real learning is usually active. That's why many good students do exercises, mock exams, active summaries, or try explaining concepts without looking at their notes. Because when your brain is forced to use information, that's when it truly begins learning. For example, if you study math, don't spend 2 hours just watching theory videos. Solve problems. Make mistakes. Correct them. Then try again. Because learning also means failing many times. The fifth thing is that they understand something very important about the brain. Resting is part of studying too. Many people think studying longer always means learning more. But after a certain point, the brain simply stops absorbing information efficiently. And Japanese students understand this surprisingly well. For them, studying isn't about sitting at a desk endlessly. It's about maintaining a sustainable rhythm for a very long time. That's why sleeping properly, taking walks, and having real breaks can massively improve your performance. Take breaks without destroying your attention span. Don't open TikTok for just 5 minutes because it will probably turn into 40. Breathe, walk, drink water, then come back. Because studying well will always be better than studying exhausted. The sixth thing is really interesting. And honestly, very few people outside Japan talk about it. Many Japanese students have something called jaibun no siki, which roughly means your own place. And basically, it means having one specific place where your brain automatically associates that environment with focus. That's why many students in Japan always study at the same desk, the same library, or even the same cafe, because the brain creates strong associations with spaces. And when you constantly study in random places, full of distractions, or lying in bed, your brain never fully enters concentration mode. But when you have a fixed study space, something strange happens. Your brain automatically understands what it's supposed to do when you sit there. And even though it sounds simple, this can dramatically improve your focus. In fact, many Japanese students don't even use that space for entertainment, only for studying. That way, the brain separates rest from concentration. And you can try this too. You don't need an amazing setup. You don't need a perfect room, just a relatively clean place where you always study. And after a few weeks, entering that space will start feeling different, almost automatic. And finally, the seventh thing is probably the strangest, but also one of the smartest. Many Japanese students use something similar to silent pressure. And no, I don't mean obsessive competition. I mean studying around other people who are also focused. That's why libraries, study rooms, and quiet cafes full of students are so common in Japan. Because when you see other people working silently, your brain naturally starts copying them. And psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Humans constantly imitate the behavior around them. If your entire environment is distracted, procrastinating, and consuming fast content all day, staying focused becomes much harder. But when you surround yourself with focused people, your brain enters that rhythm much faster. And honestly, you've probably experienced this before too. Sometimes you try studying alone at home and you can't focus at all. But then you go to a library and suddenly studying feels much easier. Not because you magically changed, but because your environment changed your behavior. And you can apply this too. Study with friends who genuinely want to work. Go to libraries, quiet cafes, spaces where other people are concentrating. Because discipline spreads too. And in the end, the best students aren't always the smartest ones. Many times, they simply have better habits. And that's probably the most important part. You don't need to completely change your life tomorrow. You don't need to study 15 hours a day. You don't need infinite motivation. You just need a system you can repeat. Because most people fail trying to do too much, too quickly. But small habits, repeated for months, eventually create massive results. And that's exactly what many Japanese students understand. Discipline doesn't appear instantly. It's built slowly, day after day, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when nobody is watching. And honestly, that's probably where real change begins. Because studying isn't only about getting better grades. It's also about proving to yourself that you can keep a promise, even a small one, even if it's only 20 minutes. Because once you start trusting yourself, everything changes. If this video helped you, save it so you can watch it again whenever you lose motivation. And remember, starting small still counts.